and welcome to this week's Inside Story. Today I'm joined with Avril, who's going to tell you all about selling your business. He's the author of Build, Sell, Retire. So, hi Chris.
Hey Taryn, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very, very well. I'm very excited to be on Inside Story to discuss my book with you.
Good to have you. So, we're almost at the point where the book is almost ready for print, so it's all exciting times. But I mean, it's an interesting topic and one that I wasn't very familiar with when we first started working together. What made you decide that you wanted to open the doors on the world of mergers and acquisitions?
My decision to get into M&A, or rather to put my business on the block for sale, was really driven by what I want from life. So I've been running the business since 2003. I've been through a number of ups and downs. The downs are very hard, and we were just coming out of a particularly difficult time. And I had to say, I don't know whether I had the energy to see another big downturn through and push the business forwards. And I've got a growing family, and with that becomes more pressure to be happy and to remove some of the financial challenges and burdens of running a business. And one day someone knocked on my door and made an offer for the company, not the company that we sold to, but another business in the States. And that made me think, maybe this is a good time to sell. So I started the process at that point of looking at M&A, who can help me, and what's my business worth?
Now, it's quite interesting that you said it wasn't the company that originally bought you. From a complete layman novice at all of this, should you ever take the first offer you get?
Should you take the first offer you get? Good question. It depends. If the first offer is 20 times your profit, then I would say take it, snap their arm off. But the reality is most people make tentative offers to companies to buy them as a way of really testing whether that company is for sale and to see the appetite and attitude of the company owners. So in my experience and talking to many other founders, very few people sell on the first offer. What they tend to do is go to market, see what the business is worth, see who the perfect suitor is, and then find the best fit. Those who do sell straight away to the first offer will often be undervalued and may well find that the person they've sold to is really not the right marriage for them to be in.
So one of the things that really interested me is you kind of have a bit of a maybe preconception when you're starting out in business that you've got to be huge in order to sell your business, but that's not the case, is it? We've spoken about it, and there's a realization that even solo business owners can actually put their business up to sell.
So I think what triggers a sale and what size you need to be is an important factor in selling successfully. Whether you're a single owner, a sole founder like me, or a partnership, it doesn't really matter. It's much more around the appetite of the companies who are looking to buy to want to buy a business like yours. Typically, I would say £5 million turnover is pretty much a starting point to sell. The reason is that anything less than that and the cost of the acquisition for the buyer is so much that the value once they bought you isn't really there. But yeah, a company worth turning over £1 million could potentially sell because they have a brilliant product or IP or an amazing client or something that acquirer wants. But typically you're looking kind of 5 million plus is where you really start to get good value for your business and a sum of money that will be life-changing for you.
So there's a lot of different reasons for selling your business. For you said it was about wanting your freedom. Would you say that that's where you are now?
I have never felt so free and been able to make choices as easily as I can today. Part of that's financial, but part of that's also, I don't go to work. I don't have to get up in the morning and go to the office. I don't have to answer to clients. I don't have to answer to a boss. And I don't have to worry about, looking after, a number of offices and a number of co-workers. So it's selfish, but it's a fantastic place to be. And maybe it's not selfish, actually. I've got kids and a wife and, I've got other priorities. So putting my family first and having the financial freedom to do that is incredible.
All right, so let's wind it back a bit then. So there you were. So we were talking about 5 years ago that you sold. Is that right?
I sold in 2016 May. So that was 4 weeks before the Brexit vote. and I had a 2-year earn out, which took me to May 2018.
Okay, so at the point then that you actually had done the deal, there's an awful lot that goes on before that. Looking at it, I was really new to this. I thought you could just go, you know what, business is doing really well and it's turning over great. Now I'm going to look to see if I can get someone to buy it. That really isn't how it works, is it? You say it's probably, 3 years beforehand?
Yeah, I think the reality is that most people sell when they get made a decent offer and start looking, and they may have a 12-month runway between I'm interested in selling and actually completing a deal. The reality of life is if you can start planning well in advance, then you will have a much better chance of succeeding. You'll have a much better chance of doing a better deal financially and doing a better deal for a partnership. I mean, the reality is deals are complex, far more complex than I could ever have imagined. And you spend a lot of time sorting detail out, sorting stuff out. It's a full-time job. So my advice to myself, if I were to do it again, is 3 years before I want to sell, start planning. And by the time I come to sell, it'll be very smooth. I'll be a swan, a little bit flapping underneath because there's always pressure, but on the surface, tranquil. When I sold, it was mayhem. I mean, the whole thing was just bouncing from one challenge and frustration to the next.
So which leads us nicely into kind of the advice that you give to people. Again, some of the things that kind of struck me, I mean, the book is brutally honest. You know, you don't hold anything back, which is fantastic. But some of the things that you said that stuck with me were the importance of documentation and looking after you know all of your information right from the beginning.
So documentation is so boring. Detail, financials, contracts, any information that isn't about doing the job, delivering the service, I typically found very tedious. So I ignored it. I left it. I didn't deal with it. And I think what's important for us entrepreneurs is that the realization that it does take time to pull stuff together, and corporates need all the information in a kind of secure location that's easy to find, easy to go through. And you can spend a long time, and I talk about it in the book, digging through emails, Office 365 shared documents, Dropbox, Google Drive. I had a drawer full of USB sticks. I had 2 drawers. I had a box at home. I mean, I was literally spending hours sifting through things, and nothing was properly managed. So it took me a long time to get my shit together, basically, to make the business sellable. And I think that's a real eye-opener for a lot of people. No one tells you this stuff. No one tells you about the detail you need to get sorted. And those things can let you down because either the buyer gets scared off by your kind of back office disaster, or you spend so much time digging through files that you lose sight of your business at the point when you've got to be making the most profit and driving the best possible business to show the buyer how good you are. You take your eye off the ball, you foot off the gas, and suddenly your business gets into trouble. So really, really important that you're on top of all of your things, hence the 3-year run-up. Give yourself plenty of time to get yourself organized, plenty of time to get documentation done, and plenty of time to get a team in place to support you leading the business.
So again, that brings us into your reason for actually writing the book itself. You said when you went into it, people were very kind of closely guarding their secrets and the information. What's the reason for that?
That's a very good question. I'd love to hear people's feedback who have sold their businesses and share their views on why people aren't more open about their experience. For me, I really got to the point when I started to realize that not many people successfully achieve the goals they set out to achieve when they sell. That might be wealth, it might be part of a big company, it might be learning, but it's never, in the end, how you expect it to be when you start. And I think that's why people don't discuss it. I think people are embarrassed about failure. You know, they've created a brilliant business, they've driven it forward for years, they've made healthy profits. And then the biggest part of, or the biggest point in their business career when they come to sell it, it all falls apart. Now, who's going to sit in front of a colleague or a friend or a peer in industry and say, yeah, I sold my business, it was an absolute utter disaster? No one. And that's why they don't talk about it. Luckily, mine mostly succeeded. And I've talked to lots of people who share their real insight and real experience of their business sales. And that's why this book is brutally honest, because it's the only way anyone's going to learn is by hearing the truth about how hard it is, but the tips about how to get all of that out of the way and to be able to sell your business, be happy and succeed.
So, I mean, you compare the whole deal structure very much like a relationship, right the way through one night stands to waking up with the wrong person to a marriage. That's a really fun analogy, but in all seriousness, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to be in a very strong and supportive and happy marriage, which, you know, maybe I shouldn't be talking about an analogy about bad marriages, but I see it with lots of people. Lots of people get into a relationship and then that relationship over time changes and it isn't what they thought it would be. And selling a business is exactly like that. You get excited when you're dating, you're meeting lots of companies, they want to buy you, you want to sell, you fall in love, you kind of get drunk on each other's Kool-Aid. And then as the deal actually goes through, very quickly the reality dawns on you that you've ended up in someone's house with whom you didn't realize quite what they look like when you take your rose-tinted glasses off, didn't realize quite how brutal they are, and then they get bored of you very quickly and they move on to their next speed date. And then you've got to share a bed with another person. I mean, that is tough. So this is the reality of selling. It is like getting into a relationship because it's exactly what it is. And if you don't pick the right suitor, then you're going to have to live with that person for quite a while and it could be quite painful.
So it's a risk, a big risk. But then we talk about in the book about entrepreneurs being risk takers anyway. Do you think that if you're not a risk taker, you won't get through this sort of process unscathed, or in fact you won't go through it at all?
Oh, cool. This is a really interesting and challenging part of what I've written about and part of being who I am and the audience who are no doubt watching this. Everything we do is a risk. Setting up your own business is a risk. Getting employed is a risk. You know, I always used to say to people when I set my company up, people would say, you know, what happens if it fails? And my response is, well, what happens if you get sacked? It's the same thing. We both have no jobs. So everything we do in work is a risk. Running a business is slightly more risky because you're often putting your own finances at stake to fund your company. But the reward is huge if you get it right, both personally, you know, from doing my job, enjoying it, succeeding, feeling proud is massive. And the financial upside can also be very, very big. But there are people who are comfortable doing what they're doing, and they should really think hard about why they would sell, and would selling make them any happier, or would just continuing to run your successful business and grow it slowly be a far better route to happiness. So I say to everybody, don't sell unless you're clear on what your idea of happiness is, what your life goals are, and what they cost. And once you know that, you can decide to keep growing or you can sell.
So when you talked to quite a lot of founders putting this together, how many of them have actually gone back and started other businesses once they've sold?
Most, 95% of people who sell, this is from my own experience, will go back into doing something similar that they've done before, either because they've learned from what they've just done and now can see a way of growing a new business quicker and exiting it and making an even better profit from it, or they've sold their business and come to the realization that I didn't want to sell it. I don't want to retire. I don't want to sit around playing golf or bridge or, taking long walks in the park. I want to be working. It's the going to work. It's the solving problems. It's the coming up with ideas. It's the being the kingpin of an organization that keeps me going. So I think that's a challenge a lot of people face is when they do sell and they haven't worked out what it is they want from life, they have no choice but to go back into what they were doing. Not necessarily a bad thing, but why would you sell if you're going to go back and do it again? Unless, as some people do, they have a real clear plan of what's next. how to make an even bigger business, and this is what drives me: setting up, growing, and selling companies. For me, I like sailing, flying, hanging out with the family, and I have no rush to go back into what I was doing before.
You've actually done almost a 180 in terms of career, because you're now coaching other people to go through the things we're talking about in the book. Again, that's given you a little bit more freedom to do the things that you wanted to do in that respect.
Yeah, selling a business and having an 18-month non-compete allowed me to do a bit of work with some charities that are close to my heart, so I could help them with some of their digital strategy. And then I've been able to coach people, particularly through the whole of the COVID crisis and lockdown, for free, and help them meet and beat some of the challenges that I've experienced, and help them get through this, what quite frankly has been an extraordinary and awful period in our lives. And to have the freedom to do that's fantastic. Now, I'm charging for my time, and I bill my clients for me to help them grow their businesses successfully, or help them through the path of M&A sales. I'm not a broker. I'm not a corporate finance house. This is about me sharing my first-hand experience directly into what they do, and help them move faster and smoothly and cut out all of the pain that myself and my colleagues faced when we sold.
Because one of the things you said was that you sort of were going through the earnout, and again, this surprised me, was that you fully expected to stay with the company, the acquiring company that purchased you, and had a bit of a wake up for yourself into how that wasn't going to work and why that didn't fit for you, but you hadn't planned ahead for what you wanted to do next. And that's one of the things that you say very, very strongly in the book, is having that plan, the next plan, as you put it.
Yeah, the next plan. So I think it's a critical lesson for me. Was I wanted to sell for a number of reasons, which I've touched on, but to make some money, get some equity out of the company, to take the risk away from having to go through downturns and fund the business personally. I wanted to learn. I had a great business, but I wasn't learning a lot about management and leadership. And I thought if I sold, then I could join a much bigger organization, and I could start to learn a lot more about how to run global corporations. Could I make a good board member? Could I make a good CEO of a large corporate? That wasn't really a plan. That was kind of me just filling in a blank with the first thing that came to my mind, saying the right thing so I felt better when I told other people this is why I've sold. What I didn't have is an actual plan of what I really wanted to do. So when I sold and I started working for the corporate, I hated it. It was just not me. I don't want to be told what to do by people. I don't like structure. I don't like organizations sort of forcing me to do things their way. I'm an entrepreneurial disruptor. I like to challenge and change. And so I was very much a square peg in a round hole. And I then really struggled mentally with what to do next. It became a massive burden. I've got all this money. I've got the potential to do anything, but I couldn't get myself out of the company that bought me, because I didn't know if it was me being stupid, or if it was the company being unfair to me, or, when you don't know what you don't know, you're stuck. So that's why my advice is, get a plan, understand what happiness looks like for you in the future, and then build that into your whole sales strategy. You tell the acquirer what you're going to do, what your role is, how long you'll stay for, if you even stay at all after the deal's done, and know what you're doing next, because that will make you happy. Not knowing will make you bloody miserable, and I can tell you that from first hand.
So having had the plan and having sort of moved into what you're doing now, looking back, what would you have said to yourself maybe 2-3 years before? What sort of things would you be telling yourself to be prepared for?
How would I advise myself if I knew what I know now 3 years ago? Well, I think I followed probably most of the advice I would tell myself now, which is about simplifying business, focusing on the core things you do best, having a very clear message, having a really good leadership team or management team or senior team who can continue to grow your business with you and for you. I would have definitely told myself to be prepared for things to be a lot different to how I imagine they would be, and to what the advisors and the people around you are helping you sell, both from the buyer and from your side. Everyone is telling you a positive story, because you wouldn't sell if you knew the truth. Not that should put you off, but the truth is tough. The truth is hard. The outcomes are rarely what you expect them to be, and it's a much harder slog than I ever expected. So I think, to myself 3 years ago, I would say plan, prepare, and then be ready to adapt and change. But never forget, you own this decision. You've decided to sell. You're making the most profit from it. So just get on with it. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and get through it.
One of the other things that you say is that it's having not only the right people around you, but actually getting outside support, outside advisors or experts in quite near the beginning. People like the brokers, other people that can help. Why that?
So let's look at it this way. As a professional athlete, you have a number of different people who help to coach you and to support you through your journey. Yeah, you're a brilliantly gifted athlete or sports person, but there's so much more for you to do technique-wise, mentally, organizationally, and those coaches are also there to represent you. You might have a person who represents you for your sponsorship, for your fees, for all those things. And as entrepreneurial business owners, we tend to think we can do everything because we always do everything. So some people choose not to get support. They don't get coaches or mentors. They don't get someone to help them with the M&A process because they want to learn to do it. They want to prove that they're kind of superheroes. But for me, I've been working with SI Partners, my corporate broker, for a long time. And they'd helped me improve my business, and they'd been very good friends to me, and they'd helped coach me a little bit. So when it came to sell, I went straight to them and I asked them to help me go to market. And I asked them to help manage the process so it wouldn't cause me too much distraction from my day-to-day business. There's nothing worse than trying to flog your company whilst also trying to run your business, and you suddenly realize that you are more responsible for more parts of your business than you would ever admit to. And now you've got a double day job where you're also trying to sell it and manage meetings and interviews and due diligence processes, and it's just crazy. So for me, taking a broker, getting outside help, helped me double the value of my business. If I'd done it alone, I would have sold for a lot less. And that's just the simple black and white truth. It worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. So I can't say it's a guaranteed way of doing better, but I would say the majority of people who self-sell fail to hit a valuation that's true for their business. Those who use an outside partnership to help them sell will achieve usually more than they ever expected.
See, there's an interesting tie-in between, so one of the chapters in the book is about feeling a kind of imposter syndrome. And you sort of touched on very lightly there, is that if you go into this trying to sell it yourself, we never fully value properly what we're worth, what we hold. And I think some of that perhaps comes from that imposter side of things. So, one of the things you've said is if you go into selling it yourself, you may well end up not making as much as the company's worth, perhaps because you're a little more vulnerable in your negotiations or in your attitude towards selling. Do you think that's the case?
It's 100% the case. We are not knowledgeable in the ways of M&A. When you first time you've done it, you don't know how hard to push. You don't know what your business is worth. Some people overvalue, most people undervalue. And it really helps when someone has a formula that they can apply to your company that matches the formula of the acquirers. This isn't something people just make up. This happens day in, day out with thousands of companies buying thousands of other companies. I met a guy a couple of days ago at the airfield, and he sold his company or sold businesses 3 times. He makes games, all sorts of video games. And he said the first 2 sales were complete failures because he was too humble. He didn't want to upset the acquirers. He didn't want to upset the people who worked with him. He gave away far more of the value of his company to keep everyone happy than he should have. It was only the 3rd time, when he'd been through the process twice, that he stood up for himself, and he pushed his end of the bargain much harder, and he put his terms of what he wants out of it. And he's still there. I think 4 or 5 years later, still looking after the sales of the electronic games business and loving it. But that's because he was clear on what he wanted. He'd had the experience twice before, really failed twice, and was able to nail it a 3rd time. So my advice is, don't fail, learn from others, take that into your first sale, get support, and you'll do brilliantly.
Because that's one of the things you say, is it, and I know this for myself, you put very clearly, it's very lonely when you are a sole founder. You haven't got anyone to bounce ideas off. And you kind of get trapped into a little world where you're seeing everybody else apparently having massive success, and you're having to try and keep up with that appearance. So that whole not having anyone to talk to about what you're going through, not having, as you said, no one's telling you the truth about what was going on as well, it all kind of mixes together into this whole pot of, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what I'm supposed to say, and no one wants to help me. So I think this book will will definitely open it out a lot more, so that people could see it's okay to say, as you did, actually, you know what, things aren't great at the minute, I could do with some advice or some help, and then suddenly people will open up and talk to you. And I think this book should probably do a lot more of that. Yeah,
it's very lonely at the top. And, as a sole founder, there are unique challenges. And as a partnership, equally they have unique challenges. But I think the reality is, as business founders and business owners, we find it hard to talk to anybody. I talk to my wife about stuff, but I would never want to admit how bad things were, or I rarely admitted how bad things were. I could never tell my senior team how much I was suffering, because I expected them to look up to me as an unflappable leader. You'd never tell people in the industry how bad it is, because you don't want to look like they're going to come and poach your staff and take your clients. And you can never tell clients you're struggling, because you'd never win any work. So it does become lonely. It becomes quite challenging. The imposter syndrome you talked about is a reality that makes you doubt what you're doing and doubt whether you're capable of running this business. So, mentoring is a fantastic tool. I wish I'd had more mentors during my development growth periods. Coaching is fantastic. I love my coach, and Tanya helped me break the burden of decision making and release me from my own self-imposed trap. And getting people in to help you understand how to get the most out of your company, like an SI Partners or equivalent, can only add to your knowledge, can only help you be a better deal maker. It can't detract from that deal making. You might not have the right relationship, so can it? If they're not working for you, fire them. Find someone you get on with, like a lawyer. Lawyers are kind of boring, and they're kind of necessary, but I love my lawyer. My lawyer was awesome. My lawyer said to me, this is all about drama. This is about putting you at the center of the stage and making you feel like you're the key player in this whole deal process. And they did, and I loved it. Some of it was boring, but most of it was really interesting, learning how to negotiate, learning how to read legal contracts, learning what it really meant, learning what to push back on and what to accept. So all of my outside support, all of the people who have helped me beat the challenges of being lonely at the top, I couldn't thank enough. And I did phone up pretty much everyone who helped me get to where I got to and said thank you once I sold.
So, as we've mentioned, we've just gone through a really, really difficult period, and that there are so many businesses struggling. But do you think this is still a good time for people to be able to sell their business?
Is a downturn a good time to sell? I think there's never a bad time to sell. Firstly, I think the question is really asking, how do I get out of the downturn? And how do I get myself into a position to sell? So downturns create better business, and smaller businesses typically are able to adapt and adjust much faster than bigger businesses, and use a downturn to refocus. And a lot of people I mentor have refocused, changed shape, changed what they do, and they've come out the other side already much better. So as you start to grow out of a downturn, or you monopolize this period of change positively, then you look like a really interesting acquisition, because not only are you doing what I want as a buyer, you're also clear at what it is you're doing because you've streamlined and simplified, and you've bounced out of the world's biggest downturn in living history as a better business. I mean, what's not to love about that? So I think whilst people are struggling with the reality of clients, getting paid, the cost of offices, managing staff, having to get rid of staff who are on furlough, in this awful situation, maintain that tomorrow will be better. And you will, if you want to, be able to sell your business by just following some of the steps in the book, by making business simpler, focusing on what it is to be a great leader, and then driving your business forwards. Or calling me and I'll help you.
Which I was just about to say. So if there are anybody out there that are looking to sell their business and they need some help and support, where can they find you, Chris?
So if anyone who's watching this desperately needs some help, or moderately needs some help, or is interested in talking more about how I achieved what I did, having been through two big recessions myself, then obviously I'm on LinkedIn, and then contact me through LinkedIn and we can arrange how I can best help. Some of it will be a quick chat and a little bit of advice, because there might be easy problems to solve, and some of it might be looking more of a mentoring position and how to help through that process. And other options might be introduction into my network, whether that's through clients or through people or through others to help you through the situation you're in at the moment.
Okay, so I'm a business owner. I've decided I want to sell. What are the key questions I need to ask and have answered?
Excellent. Okay, so the two key questions that I think everyone should ask and answer, and one they can do themselves, the other one they may need some help for, is what is happiness to me? What makes me happy? What do I need to continue my life and my journey? Okay, for some people that might be buying a Ferrari, it might be building schools in third world countries, it might be saving the rhino. It doesn't matter. It might be sitting at home. But as long as you know what your kind of happiness goal is, think about being retired. What are you going to do in your retirement? Get that written down really simply, and then you know what you're aiming for, you know what your goals are, and you can work out what will that cost. So how much will happiness cost me? And that's the important first thing to really understand. Happiness might cost me 500 grand, it might cost me 100 million pounds, but at least you know what you're aiming for. And the second question, easily enough, is what's my business worth? And that's a really important question to answer early on, because if your business isn't worth enough to make you happy when you sell it, you shouldn't sell. Conversely, if you can make enough money out of continuing to run your business without selling it and step back from your day-to-day job, then you can be happy and still own your company. So once you have those two pieces in place, it's a lot easier to be able to then start to plan. I can sell the company in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or I can grow my company to giving me this much profit, this much in dividends, this much in salary, and I can achieve my happiness goals by stepping back and allowing others to do the business for me.
Brilliant. So, Build, Sell, Retire is out first week of October, and I wish you every success with it, Chris. Thanks very much for today.
Thank you very much, Taryn, and I appreciate your help, and I look forward to really, I guess, answering some of the difficult questions that no one else ever told me, and busting the myths and helping you all succeed.
Thank you.